Deep within a rainforest so lush that every leaf seemed painted by endless rain, a massive figure moved slowly through the emerald shadows. Mist drifted between ancient trees, and distant birds called across the canopy like echoes from another age. Here lived Baka, a silverback gorilla whose presence was as steady and enduring as the mountains beyond the forest. Many people imagine gorillas as symbols of raw power, creatures defined by strength alone. Yet beneath Baka's broad shoulders and powerful frame lived a spirit shaped not by aggression, but by responsibility. His life was not a story of conquest. It was a story of guardianship. On quiet mornings, when sunlight filtered through the leaves in thin golden beams, Baka would rise before the rest of his family. He would sit silently and listen to the forest awaken. Every rustling branch, every distant waterfall, every movement in the undergrowth carried meaning. The rainforest was not merely his home. It was an extension of his own being. As a young gorilla, Baka had once raced through the forest with boundless energy. He climbed towering trees, wrestled with his companions, and followed his mother through winding paths hidden beneath dense vegetation. She taught him where to find fruit during difficult seasons and how to recognize danger long before it revealed itself. Most importantly, she taught him that true strength was not measured by how many battles one could win. True strength was measured by how much one was willing to protect. Years passed, and Baka grew into a magnificent silverback. His silver-gray back marked him as the leader of his family. Younger gorillas followed him without hesitation. Mothers trusted him. Infants climbed onto his shoulders and slept peacefully in his presence. His days became filled with quiet responsibilities. He led his family to feeding grounds. He watched over the young while they played. During violent storms, he positioned himself between danger and those who depended on him. On one unforgettable night, thunder rolled across the forest like distant drums. Rain crashed through the canopy, turning narrow trails into rushing streams. The youngest members of the family huddled together in fear. Baka stood over them, shielding them from the worst of the storm. Water soaked his fur, and cold winds swept across the clearing, but he never moved. Through the long night, he remained there, a living wall between his family and the chaos of nature. It was in moments like these that his true greatness revealed itself. As the years passed, the forest began to change. Places that had once overflowed with fruit grew strangely quiet. Familiar trees disappeared. New sounds echoed through the rainforest, sounds that did not belong. Distant machinery rumbled beyond the horizon. Strange scents drifted through the air. Baka could not understand the reasons behind these changes, but he understood their consequences. Food became harder to find. Ancient paths were interrupted. The boundaries of the world he had always known seemed to shrink a little more each season. While younger gorillas grew restless and frustrated, Baka remained calm. He knew that panic solved nothing. Instead, he adapted. He guided his family deeper into the forest, searching for hidden valleys untouched by disturbance. His wisdom became more valuable than his strength. One afternoon, while traveling through a dense stretch of jungle, Baka heard a cry unlike any he had heard before. Following the sound, he discovered a young gorilla trapped by a metal snare left behind by humans. The infant trembled in terror. Baka approached slowly. Despite his enormous size, his movements were remarkably gentle. He carefully examined the trap and worked patiently until the frightened youngster was free. For a long moment, the two simply looked at one another. In the eyes of the young gorilla, Baka saw fear. But he also saw hope. Without hesitation, he allowed the exhausted infant to climb onto his back. Then he carried the youngster through the forest, walking for hours until they reached the safety of his family. That evening, as the sun disappeared beyond the treetops, Baka sat quietly beneath a giant fig tree. Around him, the younger gorillas played while mothers groomed one another. Watching them, he felt something deeper than pride. He felt purpose. The older he became, the more he understood that leadership was not about power. It was about sacrifice. It was about carrying burdens so that others could continue moving forward. Time, however, touches every living thing. The once powerful silverback gradually slowed. His steps became heavier. Climbing steep slopes demanded more effort than before. The younger males, strong and ambitious, began stepping into larger roles within the family. Yet none possessed Baka's calm presence. Even as his physical strength faded, his influence only grew. Young guerrillas watched how he resolved conflicts without violence. They learned patience by observing him. They learned compassion through his example. When drought threatened the forest, Baka led the group to hidden water sources remembered from decades earlier. When disputes arose among younger members, a simple glance from him was often enough to restore peace. He had become something more than a leader. He had become a living memory of everything the family valued. Then came a season unlike any before. Heavy rains washed the forest clean. Fresh leaves covered the trees. Flowers bloomed in places long forgotten. Baka sensed that his own journey was nearing its end. One morning, before the others awoke, he climbed a hill overlooking the rainforest. It was a place he had visited many times throughout his life. From there, he could see endless waves of green stretching toward the horizon. He sat quietly. The wind moved through his silver fur. Birdsong drifted across the valley. For a long time, he simply watched. There was no fear in him. No regret. Only gratitude. He thought of the family he had protected. The storms he had endured. The countless paths he had walked beneath the ancient trees. Every challenge had shaped him. Every sacrifice had given meaning to his existence. As the day brightened, Baka closed his eyes. The forest continued breathing around him. Leaves rustled softly overhead. A gentle breeze carried the scent of rain. And in that peaceful moment, he became part of the rainforest he had spent his entire life protecting. Though his footsteps would eventually fade, his legacy would remain. It would live in the young guerrillas he had guided. It would live in the hidden trails he had discovered. It would live in every act of kindness, patience, and courage inspired by his example. The story of Baka is not simply the story of a guerrilla. It is a reminder that true greatness is often quiet. It is found in those who choose compassion over dominance, responsibility over comfort, and love over fear. And perhaps, as you listen to the distant echoes of this rainforest tale, you may discover something of Baka within yourself. A strength that does not need to shout. A wisdom that grows through patience. A heart capable of protecting what matters most. As night settles gently around you, let the sounds of the forest carry you toward rest. Let the rain whisper through the leaves. Let the worries of the day drift away. And may the quiet spirit of the silverback guardian accompany you into a peaceful and dream-filled sleep.